All right, folks, welcome back here. As promised, we're going to go through some of the supplementary content that you could provide when you do the 1.4 home activity. Because as we look back at the pacing guide here, 1.4 is where students build their home, test and collect data on their home, and analyze the data. And they're supposed to come away with, if you look at the pacing guide here, they're supposed to come away with the content on heat transfer. It has 3 of the 4 heat standards in there, 3.1, 3.2, and this should be 3.3. It's missing that. But it has the 3 of the 4 heat transfer standards. In fact, let's take a look at that. But basically, it says students are supposed to demonstrate the heat flow, describe conduction, convection, radiation, use a model and a poster. But how are they going to do this? If you take a look at the active physics text, there's not a ton of information in there about this. In fact, they build their home, they test it, and then they don't actually get any actual text content until the very next activity, 1.5. So it's kind of interesting that that's in 1.5. This is very brief too, only a couple paragraphs, and it mainly talks about conduction, convection, radiation. Not a lot of information for students, and it's given after the fact. So if you're looking at the pacing guide and you're like, all right, students are supposed to come away with these standards here. In fact, let's go to those standards real quick. How is heat transferred by conduction, convection, radiation? How heat energy moves from higher to lower temperatures? What is equilibrium? Average molecular kinetic energy? All these things they're supposed to come away with from this activity, and there's not a lot of content given to them. In fact, it's not till the next chapter. So as I mentioned in the previous video, there's quite a bit of supplementation that needs to take place here. So I'm going to show you a few ways I do that, a couple ideas that I use. So looking at the first standard, 3 methods of heat transfer, 3.1. There's some great images you can find online. I like to show students that give great examples of the 3 different ways heat's transferred. Here's one that relates it to heat and water, cooking with a pot on the stove. Goes through the 3 different ways very clearly with the illustration. So I like to show that to students, get it into their notes. And there's a really cool rap video. Students tend to like this. They're into this rap music stuff. So I'll just show you. Here's the URL on YouTube. You also find a TeacherTube if YouTube's blocked. But I'll show you. Just real quick, just so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about here. Kind of fun. It has the lyrics and some pictures to go along with it. Here, just check it out. The earth quick as a shadow and disperses with radiation, conduction, and convection. First things first, let's discuss heat. What it is before you pay for it to warm your feet. Heat is the energy that flows when atoms and molecules move. It diffuses out towards coolness. Temperature is the measurement of the average motion of these atoms and molecules. All right, so that has a lot of stuff in that, and actually, I believe you could get the lyrics online for that as well, and it goes into detail on conduction, convection, radiation, but you saw in the very beginning, it actually hits upon some of those other standards, heat going from hot to cold, average molecular kinetic energy, that's what temperature is. So it hits upon that. So I show that to students. You could pass out lyrics to them, have them follow along, discuss it. And then I'd like to have a little mini station lab activity for students. So what I tend to do is set up 3 stations around the room and have them just rotate every 5 minutes. Students in groups just rotate through these 3 stations. Or you could set up more of these 3 stations depending on your class size. But basically, I have very simple one area where there's hot water, and there's, I'll put a metal object, a wooden object, and a plastic object. I could use all 3 rulers if I have 3 different materials for rulers, but I put them in there, and they're in hot water, maybe a beaker on a hot plate or something, and just have students feel the difference and they'll be able to easily feel how heat's conducted through the metal much easier than the wood or plastic. In this picture, you actually see this teacher used like a dab of butter and just a little cutout on top of it. And as the heat's conducted, you could see that the butter melted on the metal. So that's another way you could do it. I thought that was interesting, so I included that there. But I usually just have a few brief questions I hand out to students to answer about each station, observations, what they see, why they think it's happening, how would they explain, just little questions, get them thinking, to get them engaged in the areas. Here's another one where I'll have like some warm water that's dyed red, some cool water that's dyed blue. And then what I'll do is in front of students, I'll pour them in a larger container, and the students will see the warmer water rise to the top, the cooler water go to the bottom here. And again, they'll answer some questions about what they observed and why they think it's happening. And then there'll be a little radiation area here where I'll have a heat lamp and some water and two containers, one covered by white material. I might even have a third one that's covered by tinfoil shining material, and one covered by black and thermometers, and having them notice the difference in temperature change in the thermometers. Usually it's a little difference, but there should be a difference there. Because our class, depends how long you had that heat in there, but and have them discuss the what they've noticed, and then I try to relate that to like when they go outside on a sunny day wearing a white versus a black shirt, and what does that mean as far as how heat is absorbed. So some things to talk about, some little stations for students to get engaged and do. So that's some of the things I like to supplement as far as talking about the three ways heat transfers: conduction, convection, radiation. I might have students follow up by just making a poster about these three types of heat transfer, and then in their presentation, they could use that poster as part of their presentation. It helps students to think about this a little bit more, solidify it a little bit more for them. So that is some supplements you could do around that. Okay. That might, a period or two periods of things that you could do around that. We're going to talk next about standard 3.2 in the next video. Some of the supplements I use for that. And then eventually I'll be introducing another great resource, these Eureka videos. Okay, you won't see that till some of another video, but just something I'll mention. I'll refer back to each of these standards because the Eureka videos has a lot of videos, and it does give a nice visual of each standard around this heat transfer. So just look out for that in the next videos. I'm going to stop now because I'm going to run out of time. I can't go over 10 minutes with these screencasts, but I'll show you the next bit of supplementation I do that addresses standard 3.2 in the next video. So I'll see you in a few moments there.